Hello, everyone. Welcome to the DMV Business Show. I'm your host, Otto Sevilla, and today I have a very special guest for you. We have Sid Sharma. Sid is the founder of Wild Bay. Welcome to the show, Sid.
Thank you so much for having me.
The pleasure's all mine. Thank you. Before we go into your personal story, Sid, if you can give the audience, in case they haven't heard of Wild Bay, what is Wild Bay?
So we're a vertically integrated beverage manufacturer based in Northwest Baltimore. So we manufacture two products, our Wild Bay kombucha and a Carl Yerba Mate, as well as distribute other beverages throughout the Maryland, DC, Northern Virginia area.
So I can't wait to get into the story, but I'm sure you didn't start as a distributor, or did you? And then the brands came later, or was it first brands and then distribution?
It was first the brands and then the distribution. But like most, food and beverage brands, when you're starting out, you do deliver the product yourself.
Of course. Yeah, that's awesome. Are you originally from the area here, Maryland or DC, Virginia?
Yeah, I grew up in the Maryland area, grew up in the Severna Park area, ended up moving away for college and grad school. And like Maryland does, it pulled me back in, and I ended up coming back in 2014.
Awesome. Severna Park is a great area. I have some properties around that area, so good area to be in. How was it growing up in Severna Park in that area of Anne Arundel County?
It was good. I mean, it was a nice neighborhood, nice area, lots of other kids to play with. Not the most diverse place to grow up in terms of Maryland, but other than that, it was a pretty great experience.
Do you remember childhood growing up? Like, what were you into? Any specific topics at schools or materials or sports?
I always have loved sports. I've loved playing sports, watching sports, and I've also always, my entire life, been a huge nerd when it comes to chess. I've always loved playing chess.
That's good. So, were you in the chess club?
I was the president of the chess club.
Oh, nice. Was this high school?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And I still play for fun. I'll play online or with friends, things like that.
That's good. I remember I learned in elementary school. I grew up most of my childhood in DC, and chess wasn't popular. Mostly in the inner city, it's basketball or football or something like that.
Yeah.
But I first got introduced in elementary school, and it clicked. I liked it a lot. Um, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's always it teaches you a lot of things about life as far as just strategizing and thinking things out.
I completely agree, right? I mean, a huge piece of it is never underestimate your opponent and, don't believe that, you have the win in the bag until it's over because
Yeah.
anything can happen.
So you did high school in Severna Park, and then you said you went off to college out of state. Where was that?
So for high school, I attended McDonough in Owings
Oh,
Mill.
okay.
Yeah. And then for college, I was at Case Western in Cleveland, Ohio. And then grad school, I was down at Duke University in North Carolina.
I see. And what were you focusing for undergrad and grad school?
So I was definitely one of those people that had no idea what I wanted to do. So studied a bunch of different things and saw, what stuck and what type of degree I ended up with at the end of the day. So I ended up double majoring in biochemistry and environmental science, and then I minored in Spanish, and then ended up going to grad school, get my master's in environmental management because I really fell in love with that side. Whether it's renewable energy or sustainability within business, it's definitely something I'm passionate about.
So going into grad school, I guess, what was the plan for you then? I'm sure it wasn't what you're doing now.
No, not at all. So I was focused on the energy track. I really was interested in renewable energy and especially, batteries in general, the idea of the weight issues with batteries and how we can solve those to make cars more efficient and to operate things remotely. So I was always interested in that energy side. I did study entrepreneurship as well in graduate school. And that's really when I fell in love with the idea of building something myself. I didn't grow up, necessarily around entrepreneurs or anything like that. So that was really my first exposure to it.
That's interesting. Okay. But when you finished grad school, were you still thinking of the environmental track, or were you thinking, huh, maybe let me maybe do a business of whether in that industry or something else?
I always believed that I would do that eventually. I did not think it would happen that fast. Like I thought I'd be in the workforce longer than 10 months before branching off to start my own business. But, I'm very grateful for the journey I've been on and how it all played out.
And those 10 months said, were you in, I guess, what you majored in for grad school? Were you doing that?
Yeah, so I was working with a boutique consulting firm that's focused in the energy space. They were working with large commercial buildings, kind of managing their usage, things like that.
Okay. And I guess you're like, I'm done with this. This is not what I was thinking or not what you were
Well,
expecting.
so I started working there in October of 2014, and we started working on the business not too long after that. So we were working on the business starting in March, so a little bit before when the idea was born. And we got our first space in February 2014. But I was still just part time at that point. We rented the side of a juice shop in the Hamden neighborhood in Baltimore, and we were just working after our day jobs and on weekends. Very small scale, delivering to local cafes in the area. Um, and about 6 months in, we got a call from Whole Foods that they wanted to carry our product locally. And at that point, we really felt like we had a proof of concept. We had 10 to 15 places carrying our product, moving through it. We had grocery interest from, one of the leaders in the natural space. And that's when we dove in. So on August 10th of 2015 was when we all went full time.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. How did the idea about Wild Bait come about?
So I'm really just fortunate to be here. My two co-founders, Sergio and Adam, their parents were making kombucha and other fermented foods while they were growing up. And I went to high school with Sergio, so I'd be at his house. I got to kind of witness a lot of these projects and the consumption of probiotics and kombucha and things like this was certainly not where it is now in 2004, 2005.
Sure.
Um, so it was really just pretty incredible to see, and their parents really instilled a love for making kombucha in them. And their parents ended up moving out of the country and left all of the brewing equipment with Adam. And Adam pulled it out, started with that family recipe, really developed it over a few years to make it his own. And that's what became our kombucha.
That's interesting. So you guys were brewing it and making it, or at least his parents, when you first got exposed to it, was making it from home, right?
Exactly, just right in their kitchen at home.
Okay. And when the three of you started, I guess, doing all this and experimenting and everything, this was always still from home as well.
Yes, so it was all from home until February 2015.
Okay. And I guess what made you decide like, hey, let's see where this goes and makes a business out of it, and then go into the local businesses there and promoting the business.
When you make kombucha, it's very normal for you to make more than you can consume yourself. So Adam was brewing out of his house, but for years he was sharing it with, friends in the area, family in the area, and he eventually developed, this cult-like following where Hopkins kids were coming to his house and buying kombucha from him. I'm sure all of his neighbors thought he was probably a drug dealer with all these people walking in and out of his house, but so he had a little bit of a following. So it wasn't a huge step to go from there to, okay, how can we do our first couple farmers markets or launch in this one natural store up the street? And for me, it was really a great excuse to hang out with people I had been friends with for years.
Hmm. How easy or hard was it, I guess, getting your foot into the doors, whether just the local businesses?
It was definitely challenging. I mean, if you think back to 2015, the education around kombucha wasn't where it is now. So it really was this weird, funky beverage that we had to explain to people. But it became easier and easier as not only the trend of kombucha in general grew, but our presence in the area grew. Because, I tell everyone I talk to, that first sale or that first grocery store is the hardest. Because then after the first grocery store, you can go to the next one and say, we're in Whole Foods. But until then, you need someone to take a shot on you. And, we'll always be grateful to those first couple stores that took a shot on us, right? OK Natural, which is still operating, Harmony Bakery. Those were really the two first shops that brought us in.
So I'm sure it entailed, even now, I mean, people hear about it, but I can only imagine back then it was probably much less as far as kombucha. Like, what is this? So I assume there's a lot of just, giving the product to the people to taste it, right? And teaching them, explaining it.
Exactly. I mean, taste is everything in our space. Even if someone doesn't know what something is, if they like how it tastes, that is such a hurdle to get over. And I'd always explain it in as simple of a way as possible, right? So how do you make kombucha? You make tea just like you would on a stove at home. And then you add what is called a SCOBY, a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. And that ferments the tea for whatever amount of time you decide to do. And then we add different organic juices, spices, herbs, different things to create our flavors. And that's all that goes into it. It's a very natural process. Fermentation's been used for hundreds of years. So that's usually something someone can wrap their head around.
It sounds like at first the growth was sort of grassroots locally with the local shops here in the Baltimore area, right?
Oh, 100%. I think even more narrowly focused, right? It was which neighborhoods in Baltimore are we in, right? We started
Okay.
with Remington, then we did Remington, then we started to go into Mount Vernon, and then from there we went a little bit farther south into Fells Point, and it kind of grew out from there.
How did Whole Foods come knocking on your door?
So it was a combination of things. So one thing is we knew that the local buyer had to visit every store once a quarter at that time. So we went to the local store and got to know the people at the Mount Washington Whole Foods. And they let us know when he was going to be there. And we always made sure that, there were samples in the back that he could just happen to grab. And that happened once or twice. And then we ended up running into him because someone let us know when he was going to be there. And we gave him our elevator pitch, and that's how we got in. It's funny because working with Whole Foods is so different now. It's nothing like that. Like, it's not the, it's a little bit more corporate. It's a little bit more of a process, less of stalking the buyer to get it.
That's good. And that was your foot into the door, I guess, on more of a national platform, national store, right?
Yes, yeah. I mean, it was huge for us because once you're on the shelves in Whole Foods, you have a level of legitimacy when walking into other stores, right? Because everyone assumes those big stores, they vetted you, so at that point you're a vendor that is good to work with.
Was that a pivotal point for the business there as far as entering Whole Foods or maybe entering other stores?
It was a huge point for us. So at that point, we had gone from just half of the side of the juice shop to the whole side of the juice shop. And we were starting to debate getting our own space because we were bursting at the seams. And that really pushed us to believe in it, to believe in it to the degree that you're willing to, sign a 5-year lease and take that leap of faith a little bit more.
By that time, were you still at the W-2 or you had left or were about to leave?
So I had left. So when we got the Whole Foods approval, that week we quit our day jobs.
All three of you.
Yeah, but the Whole Foods actual launch doesn't happen for another 3-4 months after that.
Sure. How, coming from a family that entrepreneurial, you said, was not in the household, let's call it. How did your parents take it when you left that secure job to, I'm going to be an entrepreneur and then see where this goes?
So I think it was a little bit split, right? So like,
Okay.
first generation American. Both my parents are doctors. They worked extremely hard to give me an incredible childhood. And I think one thing you'll see a lot with parents and people who are immigrants in general, right? It either goes two directions. They're either very risk averse, right? And they want you to have a super safe job, like, be a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer. Or it goes the other way, where it's, we came to this place for these types of opportunities, to a country that fosters entrepreneurship and risk taking.
Mhm.
So my mom was more on the become an engineer side, and my dad was more on the super excited that I was doing something a little bit more out there.
That's interesting. My parents are a little bit similar. I wasn't born here. I'm an immigrant, and I came here at a very young age. But when I talk to my mom about business, and she's more on the safety, there's more secure, while my father is more on the other end, just like your situation.
Yeah, yeah, and I think in general, people tend to have different levels of being risk averse, and you just kind of have to find what works for you.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So once both of you left, I guess the security of your W-2s, and you already had Whole Foods, but you said it was a couple months after that was going to come, right? Whole Foods, as far as that
Yeah.
account activating.
Yes.
Oh,
So at that point, we had 50 to 60 other clients we were working with. Mostly locals. The business was still very small, but we knew that if we were going to grow it to that point that we wanted to get it to, we had to dive in full time, right? Because cafes, restaurants, markets are all slammed on the weekends. That's not when they want to meet with you about coming into their store.
and at that point, it is just the three of you, or do you have any help, whether part-time or full-time employees?
It was just the three of us at that point. So it stayed just the three of us until March 2016. So we were in the side of the juice shop. We were completely running out of room, and we rented a new space with Merit in Timonium. It
Mhm.
was about 30. It was 3,400 square feet, and we were all set. We were ready to move in, and we had already had one health inspection done. We were good. They came to do the second health inspection, and they let us know that we needed to build out a warewash room that they hadn't noticed the first time. So we didn't have the funds to do that. So we entered the Shore Hatchery pitch competition, knowing we had to win the competition for the build out, and we won. We were able to go in there, give our pitch. We won $35,000 through that, and that's really what funded the building of that room that we needed.
Oh, that's awesome. What a story.
Yeah, yeah. So that was a pretty incredible experience that we look back now and laugh about, but in the moment it was pretty scary.
Yeah. When you were still working full time, the three of you were doing this then, I guess, what, evenings, nights, weekends, and juggling everything?
Exactly. I mean, it got to the point where I would leave work. My office was in Columbia. I would drive into Hamden. I'd probably get there at about 6:30, 6:45. We would brew or bottle from 6:45 to about 11:45 at night, or 12:30, depending on how long it went. I would crash at Sergio's house and drive straight to work from there.
Wow.
And yeah, it was crazy. I mean, it was a level of hustle that I think we were at an age where we could still do it, right? Like
Hmm.
I was 23, 24 years old. My only responsibilities were, a couple house plants that honestly I don't even know how well they were doing at that point. So we were able to kind of have that level of hustle.
And I assume then the weekends you mentioned earlier, farmers market. So then, promoting, marketing, selling.
Exactly, exactly. A combination of that, right? Because there's three of us. So Adam's always been more focused on the operational side. So me and Sergio are really splitting the like sales and the markets and all those.
The marketing now, I know back then started, like you said, grassroots in specific neighborhoods in the city in Baltimore. And how has it evolved to where you are today when it comes to the marketing side of things and just getting the name out there, letting people know?
So our approach to marketing has always been about saturation, right? We don't want to cast a super wide net with our brand. We want to go very deep. So within 100 miles of our facility, we're in over 600 stores. And the point of that is, we don't have a large marketing budget. But if you feel like you see something everywhere, you're going to try it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always been the approach from us. I mean, we've spent less than $5,000 in the entire year on marketing.
Wow.
Yeah, which for a consumer products brand is pretty crazy.
It is. It is. And you're in over 600 locations within a 100-mile radius from your.
Exactly. And
Okay.
in total, we're in a little bit over 1,200 locations.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, how do you get people know? I guess you mentioned as far as making people feel that you're everywhere, right?
Yeah.
How do you do that? What's the strategy there that you utilize to?
So the first thing is we've just grown in these really small concentric circles, right? So if you're going neighborhood by neighborhood and you're in 2 to 3 spots in one neighborhood, that's really all it takes.
Mm-hmm.
So then when we launched with Whole Foods, we said, it's very difficult for someone to discover your brand in Whole Foods because when you look at the shelf, and we tend to be in the cold fridge for our kombucha. I mean, there's roughly 350 other beverages right in front of that person when they're staring at it. So the likelihood they pick yours is very low. But if they had it at their local cafe where there's water, juice, and your kombucha, that's it. I mean, when they go into that grocery store, it's not a decision of, do I try to see if I like this brand? It's, I've had that, I'll go with that.
In this area, the DMV, how many are you in? How many Whole Food stores?
So we're in all the Whole Food stores in the Mid-Atlantic. So
Okay.
yeah, so it's 53 stores total for Whole
Okay,
Foods.
great. And as far as any other national, for example, like Giant, well, even though Giant is more locally, but you know what I mean, like whether Wegmans, any other stores like that?
Yeah, so we're in Giant, we're in Harris Teeter, we're in Weiss Markets, and we're on tap in all of the WeWorks in the country as well.
How'd you get that account with WeWork?
So I partnered with a friend from Commonwealth Joe. They're a local coffee company out of Northern Virginia that was
Mhm.
doing cold brew kegs on tap for offices. And he came across this RFP for kegs on tap during the pandemic. So we knew not a lot of people would be applying for this request for proposal, but we knew that things were going to come back online, at least to a degree, and that the volume would be massive for us. So our pitch was, instead of getting kombucha kegs from one person and coffee kegs from someone else, you can get full truckloads or close to full truckloads from us that have both products coming from one place.
Okay.
That, we were fortunate enough to win that contract and have been riding that out, and it's been pretty incredible for us.
That's awesome. You just mentioned COVID. Now that you bring that up, Sid, how did that affect business for you?
It was a pretty crazy time. I mean, the first, I would say, 6 months of it, we had no idea if we were going to make it. I mean, yes, we have some grocery clients, but at that time, grocery stores were really just focused on getting, canned goods, toilet paper, things like that to the shelf. So they were leaving our product in their warehouse and getting these other items to shelf. So we weren't really even capitalizing on grocery that much during the pandemic, at least the beginning of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, we had some pretty difficult times. We had to, lay off almost all of our team for like at least a period of time until, things like the PPP and other things came through. And we had to pivot to home delivery. So we were delivering directly to people's houses, really just to survive. And eventually, when things came back online a bit, there started to be curbside, there started to be grocery online. It grew again. And that's really when we launched our distribution arm of our business, which not only got us through the pandemic, but actually allowed us to grow during most of those years.
Wow, so the distribution arm started during COVID.
Yes, because what happened was all these cafes, restaurants, places we're working with, we were still delivering our kombucha in small quantities to them. And they started to ask us if we had water, sparkling water, really basic things.
Hmm.
And enough people asked us if we had water that we said, fine, we'll pick up water. So we got a pallet of sustainably packaged water in. And then they kept asking us for sparkling water. And we said, fine, we'll bring in one pallet of sparkling water. And it's really just flourished into this pretty awesome side of the business. And we have some national brands that work with us, and it's growing really quickly. It's up about 300% this year.
Wow. The distribution arm, very different than the kombucha and the brand, right?
Yes, very, very different, right? I mean, it goes hand in hand because
Sure.
whenever you're meeting with someone about the other brands, of course, our kombucha is the star. Our kombucha and yerba mate, everyone wants to talk to you about what you actually make.
Hmm.
So it grows those brands really well while also giving us much more profitable routes, right? Like our trucks aren't operating at a loss.
As far as your attention, is it in everything, the distribution and also the two other brands, or how is your time split?
So my time is split between all three because my focus within the business is finance, marketing, and sales.
Okay.
Right. So all three of those aspects obviously fall into sales. Marketing is really just focused on our brands. We haven't marketed the distribution because we really just want to grow it steadily so we can make sure we're servicing these customers well. And then on the finance side, obviously you have to finance all aspects of the business.
Ure. So as far as growing the distribution, that's just happening organically, people reaching out to you, or are you actively also trying to grow that?
Mostly organically because we have this portfolio of clients that we've been delivering kombucha to for years.
Hmm.
So just setting up meetings with them and just showing them all of the offerings. And we have a tremendously low minimum at just $80, so we're offering these businesses the ability to maintain more of their cash flow and not tie it up in inventory, and they seem to have responded to it.
Now for you personally, I know distribution and the two other brands, very, very different businesses. What's your preference? Well, where do you like to spend your time in?
That's a great question. I mean, I think it really does depend on the day and what I'm
Okay.
working on. Like, so from a marketing standpoint, definitely Wild Bay Kombucha because, we've built a super fun brand, a really clever brand. It's a ton of fun to deal with just because of the messaging and everything like that. It's very much, that brand is like that's like my baby, right?
Yeah.
It's very much a representation of my own personality in a lot of ways. And then within the sales side, I think it's split between two things, right? Because any up and down the street sales are going to involve all the distribution products, all of the brands. But the bigger grocery meetings are all about our brands. So it really depends on the day and depends on who I'm meeting with.
Okay. What would you say you're most proud of this far in your business career?
I think just our resilience. I think our resilience and our willingness to take chances and identify opportunities that other people might not see. I think that's exactly what that WeWork deal is. I think that's exactly what this distribution side is.
I love that. Always looking for that opportunity because, like you say, you never know where it may lead you.
Exactly. And I think that's the thing that sets small business apart, right? We're nimble, we're willing to take those chances. We're okay with failing small and failing quickly, right? Because that's the best way to do it when you're on a limited budget.
You started the business with three co-founders, and I'm sure now it looks much different. How many team members do you have? How does it look like today?
So we have 16 people total on our team. That includes me, Sergio, and Adam. It's definitely less of a situation where everyone does everything, right? It's becoming more and more specialized, more and more targeted. We have our team on the operations side, we have our team on the office side, we have our team in the distribution or trucking side. So it is becoming more and more specialized as we grow.
How do you go about finding the right people to add to your team and placing them in the right role there?
It's extremely hard, right? I think as a small business, especially, it's even more difficult because if I'm hiring someone that I want to be in charge of, let's say, logistics, I can't go look at who works at UPS and hire them away because you're just not going to have the same opportunity here in
Mhm.
terms of pay, right? So for us, it's really been about developing people, right? Like having the people within our team grow into a lot of these roles as they learn the business because they are experts in our business, even if they aren't experts in that field as a whole.
So some of your team members have started in a specific role or duty, and then they grow into something else.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, we see that frequently. Like someone will start in operations or on the bottling line, and they'll grow into account management or sales or other aspects of the business.
If someone came to you, said, and they wanted to open a business, any type of business, whether product like what you're doing or service, and they said, what advice would you give me before I go out there and hang my shingle per se?
Oh, that is a great question. Um, so I'm gonna approach this obviously from the type of business I have, right? So I do not have as much experience in service-based businesses. We are a product-based business. So my advice would be really prove your concept and get as much feedback as possible from neutral people, right? Your mom's going to tell you she loves it no matter what, but you have to get true feedback and put yourself in scenarios where you learn someone's actual willingness to pay. Because 10,000 people will tell you, that's great, I'd buy that. But if it's on the shelf and they have to actually pay their hard earned money, will they buy it or not?
That's true. That is very true. We were talking earlier offline as far as the entrepreneurial journey, and there may be ups and downs. Do you have any favorite fail or setback? And if so, what did you learn from it?
Oh my gosh, I mean, there's failures every day, right? I mean, being a business owner, it's an absolute roller coaster. It's the highest highs, it's the lowest lows, and the main thing you have to learn is just to keep yourself level, right? Like how do you stay level-headed? How do you not allow yourself to swing with those changes, those emotions as well? Um, in terms for us, I mean, the lowest low for me by far was having to look, 11 people in the eye in one day and tell them that we're laying them off for nothing they did wrong. They did nothing wrong. It's like they had no control over COVID-19. They were all doing a wonderful job. They helped build this business, and having to do that was really tough.
When that happened, Sid, did you or your co-founders ever sort of second guess yourself and say, gosh, man, are we doing the right thing? Are we in the right business? Should we continue with this? Or were there ever those second thoughts as far as just continuing down this road?
No, I mean, I think we've been super fortunate in our journey, right? Like we've had pretty incredible growth, pretty awesome success. Um, so we never really questioned continuing to go on.
Mhm.
Obviously, everyone has days where you walk out of your business and you think, man, it would have been great to have a 9 to 5 where I don't care what happens when I walk out the door.
Yeah.
Uh, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. I think, I've had so much personal growth. I've had so much professional growth. I've had incredible opportunities to meet people and go places that I don't think I ever would have otherwise.
That's great. Are there any specific habits or traits you feel you have that have helped you, whether on business or on just personal side of things?
I would say resiliency. I think just the ability to not panic during situations and look at it from the how do we solve this instead of, whose fault was it? I think that's a quality that you have to have. And I think just the willingness to keep pushing, right? Keep pushing those limits of what you can accomplish and like, or how far you can stretch the funds you have or the time you have.
You mentioned from the three co-founders, there's one handling operations, just sort of sales, marketing, finance, and then the third one was what, distribution or?
So Sergio's mostly focused on the HR side,
Okay.
purchasing. Yeah, a lot of the like back end side.
So you have basically sort of divided and conquered, because I was going to ask, how is it with working with the three co-founders, and is there one specifically focused on one division or something?
And exactly. So we've divided and conquered, and I am always thankful that there's three of us, right? Can you imagine trying to make decisions if there's two and you disagree? The third vote is a great thing to have.
Yeah.
I have friends who have, just two founders in a business, and if it's 50-50, what do you do at that point? I mean, you can talk through it, but if someone holds their line, it's tough to decide a direction to go. But we've gotten better and better at deciding directions and where we want to take the business, and we have much more methodology to it now.
What would you say is your biggest challenge with your role today at Wild Bay?
So my biggest challenge right now, I would say we've proven out this distribution concept. We've established our brands in the area. We know exactly where we want to go. For us right now, it's just obtaining the funds to do it. So we are in the process of opening a fundraising round for that reason, right? It's we've accomplished a lot with not a lot of funds in terms of our business, our space. And I think we're finally at that inflection point where it makes sense to, try to put some fuel on the fire and push the accelerator a bit.
Have you had any investors or any backing?
So we did a friends and family round in 2019 to pay for the build out of our facility. So we're in Northwest Baltimore right now, right off of Northern Parkway. We have 13,000 square feet. So that investment round literally just paid for the build out of the space. This will be our first time taking on more, institutional capital or outside capital from firms or places like that.
Sure. And I'm sure this is very different than the friend and family round. And since you're seeing this, how is, I guess, what are you doing differently this time around?
Well, first of all, as you grow as a business, as you become more established, it's less of the quote of, you're betting on the jockey, not the horse, right? It's
Mhm.
less, early investment's all about someone's taking a bet on you as a person. Later on, when you get to where we are, I think it's a little bit more about, what are the metrics of the business? What is the direction? What is the market share? What's the size of the market? Where's it going? So at least from my initial conversations that I've had, I think VCs are a bit more on the technical market side instead of the people personality side.
Are you looking to do this raise this year or more down the road?
So we're looking to open it at the end of this year.
Okay.
And typically raises take, you're supposed to allot 12 to 18 months for them, but I hope it doesn't take that long because that's a long time.
What do you know now, Sid, that you wish you would have known at the start of your business career?
I wish I would have been more patient, right? In making decisions and like taking the time to learn things before doing them. And similarly, I think I wish I would have realized it's a marathon, it's not a sprint.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because I think one thing I struggled with was a little bit of burnout, right? You sprint, And then whenever I'd take a week-long vacation, I'd be sick for 3.5 of the days. So,
Oh, wow.
I've been able to find more balance. And I think if I could go back, I would have told myself to, find that balance from day one.
Okay. And you said before you were, I guess, not rushing it, but you would not take your time in making a decision. So you would slow things a little bit more down before moving forward with a decision.
Yeah, I think, in general as a unit, we're a lot more calculated
Okay.
now. And which makes sense, right? You have to be as a business grows, because it affects more than just the three of you.
Yeah.
Uh, so I think now we really try to look at things from all angles. It's not just, if we add that customer, it's not just a boost in sales. It's how does that affect our logistics? How does that affect the brewers on that side? How does it affect seasonal capacity in terms of the tanks we have? Versus early on, I think we would have just said, that's awesome. Let's work with them.
Yeah. I see. So it's more thinking it through then. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have any mentors throughout this time with the business? And if so, what did you learn from them?
So I wouldn't say mentors like throughout the business in terms of there's no one really that we've talked to on like a weekly or monthly basis.
Hmm.
But there are some people that we've been able to bounce ideas off of as we've grown. One guy who's been huge for me personally is Jesko von Windheim. He was a professor of mine in grad school, and he sold a business of his own. He's very much a serial entrepreneur. So having someone who's been through the journey that you can bounce some things off of, whether it's not the same industry, is still very useful.
So you would reach out to your former professor and ask questions and chat about things?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, nice. When you hear the word success, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Freedom. I think the freedom, to me, success is the freedom to live your life the way you want to live it. So for some people, that's a lifestyle business. For some people, that means it has to be $1 billion company so they can, fly in a jet around the world. So that's really what I think about, right? The freedom to do what you want with your time.
What is the end goal, that North Star for Wild Bay?
I think for us, we're really just enjoying the journey at this point. I mean, we've talked about it several times, and we could see, of course, we could see ourselves exiting as it grows. I mean, who hasn't envisioned that? Who has a business? But also, as it scales and as it grows, I want to be one of the people here taking it in that direction as long as I can.
I'm sure now that you mentioned this, Sid, and I'm sure you probably, I don't know if you how often you think about it, probably not much. It would be nice if Pepsi or Coca-Cola comes knocking on your door, right? But if that happens one day, have you ever thought about, hey, I like this other type of business in this other industry. If I wasn't doing this, maybe I'll be doing something like that. What would that be?
So personally, when I do think about that, I think I would love to get back to my environmental roots. So something within sustainability, taking my experience in the consumer goods space, I would love to do something with like sustainable packaging, like finding an alternative to, something even simple, like whether it's pallet wrap or the caps that go on bottles or things like that, because the impact you can have on the earth from, carbon footprint is enormous because of the volume of beverages and food that gets consumed.
That is very interesting, and I'm sure that has been probably an industry that hasn't really been disrupted much, right? As far as with the pallet wrapping and all that other thing, or the cap you mentioned.
Exactly. I mean, food and beverage have been packaged in the same stuff since we were kids, right?
Yeah, I mean the only thing I can think of now is just the paper straws instead of plastic that comes to mind right now to me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but besides that, I don't think much. I mean, I'm not in your industry, of course, but yeah, that's true.
The only other item that I would say has come up in our lifetime would be Tetra Packs. So like what you see boxed water, like boxed water in, or like you'll see different waters in more of like the cardboard packaging type things.
That's true. Less plastic.
Yeah, that's been a development, but I still think we have a long way to go, right? It's an inherently wasteful industry, so there's
Yeah,
still always some stuff we can do.
that's true. Wrapping up here soon, what does the future look like for you and Wild the next 5 years, or what are you most excited about?
For us, I mean, I think the future is to continue to grow outwards and, have an impact on our community, on the local environment, right? Because with Wild Bay Kombucha, we give 1% of all sales to the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, to protect local wildlife habitats. And, as we grow, we're able to give back more, be more involved in the community. Um, I'm just excited to see how far we can take this, right? We're at a super exciting point in the business. I mean, there's always that, early on in the business is very stressful because you think, can I make this work? Anytime you're growing into a new space, it's okay, now I have to do that all over again because I have to play catch up. We're finally getting to a point in this space where, we have capacity to grow, but we're getting in a more comfortable space with our expenses, things like that. So we can tap that creative side a bit more.
That's great. You mentioned you're in 13,000 square feet now in Northwest Baltimore, right?
Yes.
And prior to that, you were in 3,000 or so?
Yeah, 3,400.
3,400. Yeah, I guess you seem as you've been growing dramatically the last couple of years. Do you see 13,000 being sufficient, or do you see another growth spurt again?
We're going to definitely have to take some more space in the next 2 to 3 years. Really kind of depends on how it goes, what we do with that. But yeah, it's extremely exciting, right? The growth is always a problem with a smile.
That is very true. But hopefully always staying local here in the Maryland, Baltimore area, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, this is home for us, right?
Okay.
Like all three of us grew up in this area. Sergio and Adam grew up in Park Heights in Baltimore, so you're talking, less than a 5-minute drive from our facility. So the
Nice.
space is special to us, and yeah, I mean, we love living here and being here.
Great. When you're not busy working and operating, running the business, what do you like to do for fun in your free time?
I love to rock climb. I've gotten really into rock climbing over the last year or so. I think it's for me, it's moving meditation, right? You're so present when you're climbing. Yeah.
Do you do that around here, or do you go sometimes to Colorado or elsewhere to do that?
Mostly around here. I mean, there's
Okay.
tons of spots in the area, whether it's Patapsco or Carter Rock. I did make a trip to West Virginia a couple weeks back to climb outside, and I am going to climb in California in September, but mostly around here.
Nice. So if people want to learn more about you and Wild Bait, where can they go to, please?
Add me on LinkedIn. It's just Sid Sharma, and check out our social media at Wild Bay Kombucha, and you can check out our website at wildbaykombucha.com.
For your social media, are you guys handling in-house or is that outsourced through another agency or third party?
You are looking at our social media team.
There you go. That's why the marketing's only $5,000.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, once you outsource that, I think obviously it gets much more expensive, but also you lose that personal side of it.
Yeah.
So we've always battled with that. I'm sure eventually, it's gonna become less and less sustainable for me to keep doing it. But until then, I do enjoy it. We try to make people smile and laugh, and that's really the focus of it.
That's awesome. Sid, thank you so much for coming on. I had a lot of fun, and thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the time.
Of course. Take care.
Thank you.